The Georgia humidity hit Maya Reeves like a wet blanket as she stepped off the bus at Fort Benning. It was 4:30 hours, and the sky was still black as ink. Around her, 32 soldiers shuffled toward the sniper school compound, their boots crunching on gravel. She was one of 3 women in the class, and she could already feel the weight of every eye on her back. "This ought to be interesting," someone muttered behind her. Low chuckles followed. Maya's jaw tightened, but she kept her eyes forward. She'd heard it all before. During infantry training, during marksmanship qualification, during every single day of her 6-year Army career. The whispers, the doubts, the assumptions that she was filling a quota rather than earning her place. But here, at the most elite sniper school in the United States military, the stakes were different. This wasn't just about her anymore. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, the same words he'd spoken when she was 12 years old, shivering in a Montana deer stand. "Control your breathing, Maya. Control your mind. Everything else will follow." The cadre appeared like shadows materializing from darkness. Master Sergeant Derek Halston stood at the front, his weathered face illuminated by the harsh fluorescent lights of the outdoor pavilion. 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan, and a chest full of medals. He scanned the formation with the cold assessment of a predator sizing up prey. "Welcome to the United States Army Sniper Course," Halston announced, his voice cutting through the humid air. "Look to your left, look to your right. Statistically, one of you won't make it past week 1. By graduation, 60% of you will have failed." Maya didn't look left or right. She kept her eyes locked on the instructor. "This course will test everything you think you know about shooting," Halston continued. "Your marksmanship skills, your fieldcraft, your mental toughness, and your ability to operate under conditions that would break most soldiers. If you're here for glory, quit now. If you're here because someone told you it would look good on your record, quit now." His eyes landed on Maya for a fraction of a second longer than the others. "If you're here because you think standards have been lowered," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet, "you're about to be very disappointed." The first day was administrative, equipment issue, medical checks, initial assessments. Maya collected her ghillie suit materials, her range estimation tools, and her training rifle, a bolt-action M24. The weapon felt familiar in her hands. She'd been shooting since she was 8 years old, hunting elk and mule deer in the Rockies with her Marine Corps veteran father. But this was different. This was the United States Army telling her whether she was good enough. During lunch, Maya sat alone at a picnic table, forcing down an MRE she didn't taste. 3 male students approached, 2 specialists and a staff sergeant. "Reeves right," the staff sergeant said. His name tape read Morrison, Montana. "That's right," Maya replied evenly. Morrison smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "My cousin went through this course 2 years ago. Toughest thing he ever did. Said only the best of the best make it." "I'm aware," Maya said. "So, what's your background?" one of the specialists asked. "Did you shoot competitively or something?" "Grew up hunting. Qualified expert on every weapon system in my MOS." Morrison nodded slowly. "Look, no offense, but this isn't about shooting paper targets on a flat range. This is about real-world application, combat scenarios, stress, physical demands that—" "I know what it's about," Maya interrupted, her voice steady but hard as iron. "That's why I'm here." The men exchanged glances. Morrison shrugged. "All right, good luck." After they walked away, Maya heard one of them say, just loud enough to carry, "Diversity quota. She'll be gone in a week." That afternoon, they hit the range for zeroing exercises, the fundamental process of aligning a rifle's sights with the point of impact. It was basic, essential, and the foundation of everything that would follow. Maya claimed a firing position and went to work, 300 meters, standard zeroing distance. She loaded 5 rounds, settled into her prone position, controlled her breathing, and fired. When the target was retrieved, the range safety officer stared at it for a long moment. Then he called out, "Reeves, come here." Every head turned. Maya's heart hammered, but she kept her face neutral as she approached. The RSO held up her target. All 5 rounds had gone through the exact same hole in the center of the bulls. A single, ragged aperture no bigger than a quarter. "This your first time zeroing this rifle?" he asked. "Yes, Sergeant." He studied her face, searching for something, arrogance maybe or fear. He found neither. "Outstanding," he said simply, and handed the target back. Behind her, Maya heard Morrison's voice, "Beginner's luck." Without a word, Maya returned to her firing position. She loaded another magazine, 5 rounds, and fired again. Same controlled breathing, same sight picture, same squeeze. The second target came back identical to the first. The range went absolutely silent. Master Sergeant Halston appeared at her shoulder. He examined both targets, then looked at Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Where'd you learn to shoot like that, Reeves?" "My father, Master Sergeant. He taught me that if you're going to do something, do it right the first time." Halston almost smiled, almost. "We'll see if you can maintain that standard when you're exhausted, cold, wet, and people are shooting back," he said. "Good shooting, Sergeant. Now let's see if you can stalk worth a damn." As the sun set over Fort Benning that first day, Maya cleaned her rifle with methodical precision. Around her, other students talked in small groups, forming the bonds that would carry them through the weeks ahead. She was not invited into those circles. But Maya Reeves didn't need acceptance. She needed excellence. Because excellence, she'd learned long ago, was the only language that eventually everyone understood. And she was about to become fluent. Week 2 began with a 12-mile forced march through the Georgia pine forests, each student carrying 80 pounds of gear in full combat load. The sun hadn't yet broken the horizon when Master Sergeant Halston's whistle pierced the pre-dawn darkness. "Move out," he barked. "You've got 3 hours. Anyone over that time fails this evolution." Maya adjusted her pack straps and started moving. Within the first mile, her shoulders screamed in protest. The ruck dug into her hips despite careful adjustment. Her boots, broken in over months, still found new places to rub blisters. But she'd be damned if she'd fall behind. Morrison passed her at mile 3, his longer stride eating up ground. "Doing okay back there, Reeves?" he called over his shoulder, not bothering to hide his smirk. Maya didn't waste breath responding. She focused on her breathing, her footfalls, the rhythm her father had taught her on mountain hunts that lasted days. Pain was temporary. Quitting was permanent. By mile 8, 3 students had dropped out, collapsing beside the trail with heat exhaustion. The cadre loaded them into a trailing vehicle without ceremony. Maya's vision narrowed to the back of the soldier ahead of her. Left foot, right foot, breathe, keep moving. Mile 10. Her legs felt like lead. Sweat poured down her face, stinging her eyes. The pack seemed to gain weight with every step. Morrison was somewhere ahead, already finished probably. The thought made her push harder. When she crossed the finish line, 2 hours and 47 minutes, Halston was waiting with a stopwatch and an inscrutable expression. "Reeves, not bad," he said. "Hit the showers. Classroom starts in 30 mics." Maya wanted to collapse. Instead, she nodded. "Yes, Master Sergeant." In the female barracks, a small section separated from the main bay, she peeled off her sweat-soaked uniform and stood under cold water that felt like heaven. Her shoulders were raw, her feet bleeding through her socks. She wrapped the blisters, took 4 ibuprofen, and dressed in a fresh uniform. She would not show weakness. The classroom portion of sniper training was where art met science. Ballistics, atmospheric conditions, range estimation, target detection. It was a master's degree compressed into weeks of intensive study. Maya absorbed it like a sponge. She filled 3 notebooks with calculations, wind formulas, and trajectory charts. While other students struggled with the mathematics, she saw patterns, connections. Her father had taught her to read the landscape. Now she was learning to read the invisible forces that governed every bullet's flight. Wind is your enemy and your friend, the instructor explained, pointing to a chart showing wind drift at various ranges. At 1,000 meters, a 10-mile-per-hour crosswind will push your round approximately 96 inches off target. Anyone want to tell me what happens if you miscalculate by just 5 miles per hour? Maya's hand went up. Approximately 48 inches of drift, Sergeant, enough to completely miss a human-sized target. The instructor nodded. Exactly, which is why you'll learn to read wind like you read a book. Vegetation, movement, mirage, dust, your own instinct developed through thousands of observations. That afternoon, they moved to the unknown distance range. Students were given targets at various ranges between 300 and 800 meters and had to estimate the distance within 5% accuracy before engaging. Maya studied her first target through her scope, a silhouette partially obscured by brush, maybe 600 meters out. She used the mil-dot reticle, measured the target's height against the hash marks, performed the mental calculation. 620 meters, she announced. Engage, the instructor said. She dialed the elevation, accounted for a slight right-to-left wind, and fired. The target went down. Actual distance, 618 meters, hit, next target. She ran through 6 targets, hitting 5. The one miss, a particularly difficult shot through foliage at 750 meters, still bothered her as she cleared her weapon. Morrison was at the next station. He'd hit 3 out of 6. Not bad quota, he muttered as she passed. For a girl. Maya stopped, turned, looked him dead in the eye. The targets don't care what's between my legs, Morrison, she said quietly. They only care whether I can make the shot. Maybe you should focus less on my gender and more on your windage calls. His face reddened, but before he could respond, Master Sergeant Halston appeared. Morrison, you got something to say it to me. Otherwise, get back on your weapon. No, Master Sergeant, Morrison replied, his jaw tight. Good, because I don't give a damn who you are, what you are, or where you came from. I care about one thing, can you put lead on target when it matters? Reeves can you? Morrison didn't answer. That's what I thought, get back to work. As Halston walked away, Maya caught his eye for just a second. He gave her the slightest nod. That evening, during personal time, Maya sat outside the barracks cleaning her rifle. The repetitive motion was meditative. Disassemble, clean, lubricate, reassemble. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency. You know he's going to make it harder for you now. Maya looked up. One of the other students, a specialist named Chen who rarely spoke, sat down across from her. Morrison, Maya asked. Yeah, you embarrassed him in front of Halston. Guys like that don't forget. I didn't embarrass him, he embarrassed himself. Chen smiled slightly. True, but he won't see it that way. He paused, watching her work. For what it's worth, that shooting today was impressive, best in the class. Thanks, Maya said, surprised by the genuine compliment. My sister wanted to be a sniper, Chen continued, his voice softer now. She was a hell of a shot, but she got tired of fighting the system, fighting the attitudes. She got out after one enlistment. He met Maya's eyes. Don't let them wear you down. Some of us are rooting for you. After he left, Maya sat in the gathering darkness, her rifle now perfectly clean and gleaming with fresh oil. She thought about Chen's sister, about all the women who'd tried and quit, not because they lacked skill, but because they lacked the support, the acceptance, the simple acknowledgement that they belonged. Maya wasn't naive. She knew excellence alone wouldn't change every mind. Some people would always see her gender before her abilities. But there were others, like Chen, like maybe even Halston, who were willing to judge her by her performance. And performance was something she could control. The next morning, they began stalking training, the most difficult phase of the course, where students learn to become invisible. Maya was about to discover that the real test wasn't hitting targets. It was becoming a ghost. The stalking course sprawled across 800 meters of open Georgia terrain, a nightmare landscape of sparse vegetation, rolling hills, and two instructors positioned at the finish line with high-powered spotting scopes. Their job was simple: find the students before the students found them. Master Sergeant Halston stood before the class in the early morning light, his expression grave. "Gentlemen and ladies, this is where most of you will fail," he announced. "Marksmanship is important, but any decent soldier can shoot. A sniper must be invisible. You'll move from the start line to your final firing position without being detected. The walkers," he gestured to two instructors with radios, "will patrol the area. If they spot you, you fail. If the observers spot you, you fail. If you make noise, disturb vegetation, or skyline yourself, you fail." He let that sink in. You have 4 hours to move 800 meters and take one shot from within 200 meters of the observers. Most of you will be spotted in the first 30 minutes. Some of you won't even make it past the start line. Maya studied the terrain through binoculars. The route offered minimal cover, mostly grass, some small bushes, scattered rocks. The instructors had deliberately chosen the most exposed ground possible. "This is impossible," someone whispered behind her. Maya didn't think so. She'd spent years hunting elk that could detect a single careless movement from hundreds of yards away. This was just a different kind of hunt. "Morrison, you're up first," Halston called. Morrison moved to the start line, his ghillie suit already donned, a camouflage garment covered in local vegetation that broke up the human silhouette. He began his stalk with confidence, moving low and deliberate. 15 minutes later, a whistle blew. "Morrison spotted. The walker saw your movement at 75 meters. You're done. Next." One by one, students attempted the course. One by one, they failed. Spotted at 50 meters. Heard rustling vegetation at 100 meters. Silhouetted against the skyline at 200 meters. 4 hours passed. 17 students had gone. 17 had failed. "Reeves, you're up." Maya pulled on her ghillie suit and moved to the start line. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. She'd modified her suit the night before, adding local grass and small branches in patterns that matched the terrain she'd studied. "Begin." Maya dropped flat and began to move. Not crawling, that disturbed too much vegetation, but a technique her father had taught her called the sniper low crawl. Inches at a time, using her elbows and the edges of her boots, distributing her weight to avoid crushing grass. She moved diagonally, not straight toward the target, using the natural folds in the ground for concealment. Every few minutes, she stopped completely, freezing for 5 or 10 minutes, watching, listening, reading the environment. The sun climbed higher. Sweat poured down her face, soaking into the earth beneath her. Gnats swarmed around her eyes. She didn't move to brush them away. 30 minutes in, she'd covered maybe 50 meters. The walker passed within 20 feet of her position. She could hear his boots crushing grass, his breathing. He was looking directly at her general area. Maya became stone. Not a muscle twitched, not an eyelid blinked. The walker moved on. She waited another 10 minutes before continuing. 1 hour became 2, 2 became 3. The other students, watching from the observation area, grew restless. "Where the hell is she?" someone muttered. "Probably gave up," Morrison said, "waiting for the time limit so she doesn't look bad." Master Sergeant Halston said nothing, but his binoculars never left the field. At 3 hours and 47 minutes, Maya reached her final firing position, a slight depression in the ground 160 meters from the observers. She'd approached from an angle they weren't watching as closely, using a small cluster of rocks to mask her final movements. Now came the hardest part. She had to construct her firing position, set up her rifle, acquire the target, and take the shot, all without being detected. Glacially slow, she pulled vegetation around herself, blending the edge of her ghillie suit into the natural landscape. She positioned her rifle, using a small rock as a rest. The barrel was wrapped in burlap, breaking up its distinctive shape. Through her scope, she could see the observers clearly. They were scanning methodically, looking for any sign of movement, any unnatural shadow or shape. Maya controlled her breathing, slowed her heart rate, became part of the earth itself. The target was a silhouette positioned just behind the observers, a simulated enemy they were protecting. Maya calculated the range, 163 meters. Slight wind from left to right, maybe 3 miles per hour. Minimal adjustment needed. She settled the crosshairs on center mass. And waited. The observers were still searching, still trying to locate her position. Maya's finger touched the trigger. The pressure was familiar, comforting. Squeeze, don't pull. Let the shot surprise you. The rifle cracked. The target went down, a perfect center mass hit. Both observers jerked up, startled. Their binoculars swung toward the sound, scanning desperately. "Where did that come from?" one of them radioed. Maya's voice came through her radio, calm as morning mist. "Reeves, position Echo 3, request permission to extract." There was a long, stunned silence. "Reeves, say again your position." "Echo 3, 163 meters from your position, bearing approximately 270 degrees." The observer swung his scope to the location she'd indicated. He stared for a full 30 seconds. "I'm looking right at it and I still can't see you," he finally said. "Wave your hand." Maya raised her hand slowly. "Jesus Christ," the observer breathed. "You've been there the whole time. How long?" 13 minutes in position, Sergeant. Total stalk time 3 hours, 58 minutes. Reeves, stand up and show yourself." Maya rose from the earth like a spirit materializing from morning fog. The observers watched in disbelief as she seemed to simply appear from ground that had looked completely empty seconds before. When she walked back to the observation area, the other students stared in silence. Morrison's face was pale. Master Sergeant Halston examined her ghillie suit, noting the meticulous camouflage work, the natural debris patterns, the attention to detail. "Outstanding," he said simply. "That's the standard, people. That's what a ghost looks like." He turned to the class. "Reeves just spent 4 hours moving 800 meters in full view of trained observers and never got spotted. The shot was perfect. The fieldcraft was textbook." He looked directly at Morrison. "This is what excellence looks like, regardless of who's delivering it." That evening, something shifted in the barracks. Chen approached Maya first, asking for tips on camouflage construction, then 2 others, then 5 more. Morrison kept his distance, but the open hostility had vanished, replaced by grudging respect. Maya shared what she knew freely. She wasn't here to prove she was better than everyone else. She was here to prove she belonged among them. But in the back of her mind, she knew the hardest test was still coming. Stalking was one thing. The final field training exercise, where everything came together under pressure, would be something else entirely. And there, Maya would discover that sometimes the greatest obstacles weren't the targets downrange. Sometimes they were standing right beside you. Week 7 brought the capstone event. A 72-hour field training exercise that would simulate real combat conditions. Students would work in 2-man sniper teams, shooter and spotter, rotating roles while conducting surveillance, target identification, and precision engagement against pop-up targets at unknown distances. Maya was paired with Specialist Travis Kramer, a soldier from Kentucky who'd washed out of the course 6 months earlier and was recycling through. He had something to prove, and the resentment rolled off him in waves. "Look," he said as they prepared their gear, "I know you're hot shit right now, but in the field the spotter is just as important as the shooter. You're going to have to trust my calls." I understand, Maya replied evenly. We're a team. Kramer's smile didn't reach his eyes. Right, a team. They inserted into their hide site under cover of darkness, a carefully constructed position overlooking a valley with multiple target areas at ranges from 400 to 1,200 meters. The hide was cramped, barely large enough for two people, their gear and their optics. For the first 24 hours, everything went smoothly. Maya spotted while Kramer shot. His marksmanship was solid, if not exceptional. He hit 7 out of 10 targets, missing the longest-range shots. Not bad, Maya offered. The wind in this valley is tricky. It swirls unpredictably. I know what the damn wind does, Kramer snapped. I've been here before, remember. The tension in the hide was thick enough to cut. When they rotated roles and Maya took the rifle, things changed. The first target appeared at 600 meters. Maya ranged it, checked the wind through her scope, watching the mirage shimmer across the valley floor. Wind is left to right, approximately 4 miles per hour, she said. Kramer, peering through the spotting scope, paused. I'm seeing right to left, about 6 miles per hour. Maya frowned. The vegetation she could see, grass bending, leaves rustling, all indicated left to right. Can you check again? I'm seeing. I know how to read wind, Reeves, Kramer interrupted. Right to left, 6 miles per hour, that's your call. Maya hesitated. In sniper teams, the spotter's job was to provide environmental data. The shooter was supposed to trust that information, but her instincts screamed that he was wrong. She made a decision. Roger, adjusting for right to left, 6 miles per hour. She dialed in Kramer's correction and fired. The round impacted 2 feet left of the target. Miss, the evaluator's voice crackled over the radio. Correct and re-engage. Maya bit back her frustration. She adjusted based on what she was actually seeing, left to right wind, and fired again. The target dropped. Hit next target. Over the next 12 hours, the pattern continued. Kramer would feed her wind calls that were consistently wrong. Not dramatically wrong, just enough to ensure a miss on the first shot. And in combat, you rarely got a second shot. By the second night, Maya was certain it was deliberate. She'd watched him spot for other students during training. He knew how to read wind. He was sabotaging her. The question was, why? The answer came during a brief rest period, when Kramer thought she was asleep. She heard him muttering into his radio to another student at a different hide site. Yeah, she'll probably wash out after this. Can't hit shit when it matters. All that hype was just luck. Maya's jaw clenched in the darkness. She wanted to confront him, to report him to the cadre, but she knew how that would look. The girl who couldn't handle it, the diversity hire who needed special protection. No, she'd handle this differently. The final day brought the ultimate test, a simulated hostage rescue scenario. A hostage target would appear at long range with a terrorist target standing directly behind it. The shooter had to hit the terrorist without hitting the hostage. One shot. No second chances. Unknown distance, unknown conditions. Maya and Kramer had been in the hide for 56 hours. They were exhausted, hungry, and barely speaking to each other. Final scenario initiating, the radio announced. Stand by. The targets appeared, 900 meters downrange, partially obscured by vegetation. The hostage target in front, the terrorist behind, separated by maybe 18 inches. A nearly impossible shot even in perfect conditions. And the wind was gusting. Maya ranged the target, her mind calculating instantly. 912 meters. She studied the environment, watching grass at different distances, reading the mirage, feeling the subtle shifts in air movement. Wind, she asked, though she already knew what Kramer would say. He peered through his scope. Steady right to left, 8 miles per hour. Maya's blood ran cold. She could see clear as day that the wind was gusting left to right, varying between 5 and 10 miles per hour. If she used Kramer's data, she'd miss the terrorist completely. Worse, she might hit the hostage. This was it, the moment of truth. She could follow Kramer's call and fail, or she could trust herself and face the consequences. Did you hear me, Reeves? 8 miles per hour right to left. Maya took a deep breath. I copy your call, Kramer, but I'm seeing something different. Are you questioning my spot? His voice was sharp with anger. I'm reading the environment, Maya said calmly, and I'm responsible for this shot, not you, me. She ignored his sputtered protest and focused entirely on the problem in front of her. Wind at 200 meters showed left to right movement in the grass. Wind at 500 meters, mirage shimmer indicated the same. Wind at 700 meters, tree leaves confirmed the pattern. At the target itself, vegetation moved consistently left to right. Current gust approximately 7 miles per hour, settling to 5, rising to 9. She had to time this perfectly. Maya settled into her position, controlling her breathing. Her world narrowed to the reticle, the target, and the invisible forces that would guide her bullet across 900 meters of space. She waited, watched the wind cycle through its pattern, 5 miles per hour, 7, 9, dropping again. When it hit 6 miles per hour and steadied for just a moment, she fired. 9/10 of a second later, the terrorist target dropped. The hostage target remained standing. Perfect hit. The radio exploded with congratulations from the evaluators, but Maya barely heard it. She was shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline dump of making a shot that could have ended her career if she'd missed. Kramer sat in stunned silence. When they extracted from the hide site 6 hours later, Master Sergeant Halston was waiting. He pulled Maya aside while the other students cleaned their equipment. That wind call from your spotter was wrong, he said quietly. Maya's heart skipped. Master Sergeant, I know, I was watching through my own spotting scope. He studied her face. You knew it was wrong before you took the shot, didn't you? She nodded slowly. And you corrected it yourself. Used your own observations, trusted your training over bad information. Yes, Master Sergeant. Halston was quiet for a long moment. In combat, Reeves, you can't always trust what you're told. Radio calls can be wrong. Intelligence can be outdated. Technology can fail. The only thing you can absolutely rely on is your training and your instincts. He paused. You just proved you have both. Thank you, Master Sergeant. Don't thank me, you earned it. He glanced toward Kramer, who was packing gear with furious intensity. Some people will always try to tear you down. The question is, will you let them? That evening, final scores were posted. Maya ranked 3rd overall in the class. Morrison ranked 7th. Kramer ranked 19th. Graduation was 3 days away. Maya had survived the course, but the real test, proving herself in actual combat, still lay ahead. And that test would come sooner than she could have possibly imagined. 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days after graduation, Sergeant First Class Maya Reeves stepped off a Chinook helicopter into the dusty hell of Forward Operating Base Lightning in Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. The rotor wash kicked up a sandstorm that stung her eyes and coated her teeth with grit. Welcome to war. She'd spent the intervening years assigned to various infantry units, conducting overwatch operations and training new soldiers. She'd earned her call sign, long shot, after consistently hitting targets at extreme ranges during qualifications. Her reputation had grown quietly within the sniper community. The woman who never missed, the ghost who appeared from nowhere. But Afghanistan was different. This wasn't a training range. Here the targets shot back. You Reeves, a staff sergeant approached through the dust, his uniform faded from months in the sun. I'm Hayes, 2nd Platoon. You're attached to us for this deployment. Security Force Advising Team, working with local Afghan units. Good to meet you, Sergeant, Maya said, shouldering her pack. You'll bunk in the female quarters such as they are. Mission brief is at 1800 hours. We've got a joint operation with a SEAL platoon tomorrow. Big deal, apparently. Maya's eyebrows rose. SEALs. Yeah, they're hitting a high-value target compound in the Panjshir Valley. We're providing outer cordon security and overwatch. The SEALs are bringing their own snipers, but Command wants additional coverage. He gave her an appraising look. Heard you can shoot. Hope it's not just talk. It's not, Maya said simply. The brief that evening was held in a plywood building that shook every time the nearby generator kicked on. Maps covered the walls. Satellite imagery showed a compound nestled in a mountain valley, mud walls, several structures, limited approaches. The SEAL platoon commander, a hard-eyed lieutenant with the call sign Trident 6, ran through the operation with military precision. Target is a Taliban cell leader responsible for coordinating attacks on coalition forces. Intel indicates he's meeting with other high-value targets tomorrow night. We'll insert via helicopter at 200, approach on foot, and conduct the raid at 400 when they're least alert. He clicked to the next slide showing positions. We'll have 2 sniper teams. My lead sniper, call sign Reaper, will take primary overwatch here. He pointed to a ridgeline, with clear sight lines to the compound. Second position will be here, covering the northern approach. Maya studied the map. The primary position was good, but it had a significant blind spot on the eastern side where the terrain dropped away sharply. What about coverage on the eastern flank? She asked. Every head in the room turned. The SEALs looked at her like she just appeared out of thin air. Who are you? Trident 6 asked, not unkindly. Sergeant First Class Reeves, sir. Attached sniper, security force advising team. A SEAL in the back name tape reading Carson leaned forward. His face was weathered, his eyes cold. That's Reaper, Hayes whispered to Maya. Reaper's voice carried the casual confidence of a man who'd seen combat more times than he could count. The eastern flank is dead space. No practical approach for enemy forces. We've run this scenario dozens of times. Primary position gives us everything we need. Respectfully, Maya said, keeping her voice level, the terrain shows several wadis and gullies on the eastern side that could conceal movement. If enemy forces... With all due respect, Sergeant, Reaper interrupted, his tone making it clear he had little respect to give, we've been doing this for a while. We know the terrain. We know the threats. He glanced at Trident 6. No offense to the Army, but we usually work with Delta or Rangers for this level of operation. The room went silent. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her face neutral. Trident 6 cleared his throat. Reeves, you'll take secondary position with your spotter. Coordinate with Reaper on comms. Any other questions? There were none. After the brief, as the SEALs filed out, Maya heard Reaper talking to another operator. Great. Now we're babysitting Army snipers. Probably couldn't hit a barn from inside it. Hayes appeared at Maya's elbow. Don't let it get to you. SEALs think they're God's gift to warfare. I don't care what they think, Maya said, though that wasn't entirely true. I care about the mission. That night she couldn't sleep. She studied the maps until she had them memorized, ran through every possible scenario, checked and rechecked her equipment. Her rifle, a customized M24 that had been with her since sniper school, was cleaned until it gleamed. At 1:45 hours they loaded into helicopters. Maya found herself sitting across from Reaper. In the red light of the cargo bay, she could see his face. Late 30s, multiple deployment patches, a man who'd seen things that would haunt lesser souls. He caught her looking. First deployment, he shouted over the rotor noise. First to Afghanistan, Maya shouted back. Nervous. Focused. He almost smiled. Good. Stay in your position, don't freelance and follow my calls. We'll all go home in one piece. Maya nodded, but something in her gut twisted. She'd learned to trust her instincts, and right now they were screaming that something about this mission was wrong. The helicopters dropped them 4 kilometers from the target. The SEAL platoon moved like shadows, their movements coordinated through years of training. Maya and her spotter, a solid specialist named Tors, peeled off toward their secondary position while Reaper and his spotter headed to primary. The climb was brutal. 60 pounds of gear, rocky terrain in pitch darkness, moving tactically slow to avoid detection. By the time they reached their position, Maya was soaked with sweat despite the mountain cold. She set up her rifle and began glassing the valley below through her night vision scope. The compound was a green glow of heat signatures, guards walking the walls, movement inside buildings. "Long shot, this is Reaper," the radio crackled. "I'm in position. Primary has good coverage on the compound. I've got eyes on at least 6 guards, multiple heat signatures inside the main structure." "Longshot copies," Maya replied. "Secondary is set. I have coverage on northern and eastern approaches." "Roger, stand by. Assault element is moving in now." Maya watched through her scope as the SEAL assault team crept toward the compound like ghosts. They were 30 meters from the wall when her scope caught something. Movement, eastern flank, right where she'd predicted. She adjusted her scope, zooming in. 4 figures moving through a wadi, carrying weapons, RPGs. They were flanking around to the blind spot Reaper couldn't see from his position. Maya's heart rate spiked. They were setting up an ambush. "Reaper, this is Longshot. I've got enemy movement, eastern flank, 4 combatants with RPGs, grid Novemberek, 428-792. They're moving to engage the assault element." There was a pause. "Longshot, I don't have visibility on that position. Can you confirm?" Maya watched the insurgents settle into firing positions. They had a clear shot at where the SEALs would be in less than 30 seconds. "Confirmed. 4 enemy combatants preparing to fire. They're about to light up our guys." "Can you take them?" Reaper's voice was tight now, all condescension gone. Maya calculated rapidly. Distance, 1,247 meters, nearly 3/4 of a mile. Wind gusting through the mountain valley, unpredictable and swirling. 4 targets. Seconds to engage before they fired on the SEALs. This was the moment everything had been leading to. Not the training, not the doubt, not the prove-yourself-everyday grind. This was why she'd become a sniper. "Longshot has the shot," Maya said, her voice steady as stone. "Take it," Reaper said. "Take them all." Maya's finger touched the trigger, and the world narrowed to crosshairs and breathing, and the invisible mathematics of ballistics. Time to show them what a real sniper could do. Maya's world collapsed into a single point of focus. The crosshairs, the target, the rhythm of her breath. 1,247 meters. The number echoed in her mind like a mantra. Through her scope, she watched the first insurgent raise an RPG to his shoulder, aiming directly at the SEAL assault team creeping toward the compound wall. 30 seconds, maybe less, before he fired. The wind was her enemy tonight. It gusted unpredictably through the valley, swirling between mountain peaks, creating microcurrents that could push her bullet 2 feet left or 3 feet right. She couldn't trust the mirage, darkness obscured it. She couldn't trust her instruments, technology had limits. She could only trust what her father had taught her in Montana mountains a lifetime ago. Read the land, feel the air, become part of the environment. Maya watched dust devils dance across the valley floor, observed how they moved, where they strengthened, where they died. The wind was cycling, strong gusts followed by brief lulls, then building again. She had to time this perfectly. "Longshot, what's your status?" Reaper's voice was urgent now. "Assault element is exposed." "Stand by," Maya whispered. Her spotter Tors was feeding her data. Wind left to right, gusting 8 to 12. Temperature dropping, pressure steady. Maya tuned him out. The numbers were useful, but they couldn't account for the chaos of mountain winds, the unpredictability of combat, the thousand variables that separated a hit from a miss. The first insurgent steadied his RPG. His finger moved toward the trigger. The wind lulled, just for a moment, maybe 3 seconds of relative calm. Maya had her window. She exhaled half her breath and held. Her finger pressed the trigger with the same pressure she'd used 10,000 times before, steady, smooth, inevitable. The rifle recoiled. The suppressor muffled the crack to a sharp cough. 9/10ths of a second later, the time it took a .300 Winchester Magnum round to cross 1,247 meters, the insurgent with the RPG collapsed. The launcher fell from his hands, unfired. But Maya was already moving. No time to confirm the kill, 3 more targets. The second insurgent was turning, confused, looking toward his fallen comrade. He didn't understand what had happened. Didn't know death was already traveling toward him at 2,800 feet per second. Maya adjusted her aim 2 feet right to account for the target's new position. Wind was building again. She waited. 1 heartbeat, 2. The lull came. She fired. The second man dropped. Now the remaining 2 insurgents understood. They scrambled for cover, weapons swinging toward the ridgeline, trying to locate the threat. One dove behind a boulder. The other ran toward a depression in the ground. Maya tracked the runner, leading his movement, calculating his speed, his trajectory, the arc of his desperate sprint. She put the crosshairs 3 feet ahead of where he would be in 0.9 seconds. The wind gusted hard. She held, waited. The gust died. Fire. The insurgent's legs buckled mid-stride. He tumbled into the dirt and didn't move. 1 target left, the smartest one, the one who'd found cover behind the boulder and wasn't moving. Longshot status, Reaper again. 3 down, 1 remaining behind cover. Maya kept her scope locked on the boulder, watching for any sign of movement. The assault element had frozen, taking defensive positions. They couldn't advance with an RPG threat still active. Seconds ticked by, 10, 20, 30. The insurgent wasn't showing himself. He was patient, disciplined, waiting for her to make a mistake to give away her position. But Maya had learned patience from the best teacher, Montana winters, waiting hours for an elk to step into a clearing. She could wait all night if necessary. Except the seals couldn't. Every minute delayed was a minute for the compound to organize a defense, to escape, to prepare an ambush of their own. Maya studied the boulder, studied the terrain around it. The insurgent had chosen good cover, a large rock that protected him from multiple angles. But cover was 3-dimensional. There had to be a gap, an angle, some way too. There, on the left side of the boulder, a narrow space where the rock didn't quite meet the ground. Maybe 6 inches, maybe less. If the insurgent was prone behind the boulder, if he was positioned the way Maya would position herself, his head might be visible through that gap. It was a nearly impossible shot. A target the size of a softball, partially obscured at 1,247 meters, in gusting wind, through a gap she could barely see. Torres saw what she was looking at. Long shot, that's. I know, Maya said quietly. She adjusted her scope, zooming to maximum magnification. The gap became clearer, but the wind became more apparent too. She could see it pushing dust and debris across the valley. Maya settled into her position, controlled her breathing, slowed her heart rate through pure will. And waited. The wind cycled through its pattern. Gust, lull, build, gust, lull. She counted the rhythm, memorized it, became one with it. Then she saw it, just a shadow through the gap, the curve of a head. The insurgent was peering around the boulder's edge, probably looking for the assault team. The wind hit its lull. Maya fired without conscious thought, pure muscle memory, pure training, pure instinct honed through years of practice and pressure. The shadow disappeared. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then a rifle clattered from behind the boulder onto open ground. "Target down," Maya breathed. "All 4 neutralized." The radio erupted. "Long shot, this is Trident 6. Outstanding shooting. You just saved my entire assault element. 4 combatants, extreme range under pressure. That was," he paused, searching for words, "that was the best sniper work I've ever seen." "Long shot, Reaper here." The SEAL sniper's voice was different now, respectful, awed even. "I've been doing this for 8 years, 15 deployments. I've never seen shooting like that. 4 targets at 1,200 meters in mountain winds. That last shot through the gap, I watched it through my scope. That was impossible." "Not impossible," Maya replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "Just difficult." The assault element continued their mission. The compound raid was successful, 3 high-value targets captured without a single American casualty. When they extracted at dawn, Reaper found Maya as they loaded into the helicopters. He extended his hand. "I was wrong about you," he said simply. "Dead wrong. What's your call sign again?" "Long shot." He smiled. "It fits. Listen, when we get back to base, I want to buy you the worst coffee the military has to offer and talk about that wind-reading technique you used. Because whatever you did out there, that wasn't just skill. That was art." Maya shook his hand. "Coffee sounds good." As the helicopter lifted off, carrying them away from the valley where she'd just changed her entire career trajectory, Maya allowed herself a small smile. She'd come to Afghanistan to prove she belonged. She'd just proven she was one of the best. And the SEALs, the most elite warriors in the American military, had taken notice. 3 months after the Panjshir Valley operation, Maya received an email that made her read it 3 times to ensure she wasn't hallucinating from the Afghan heat. From Naval Special Warfare Command. Subject: Instructional Assignment Request. Classification: Official. The message was brief and unprecedented. Naval Special Warfare Command requested her temporary assignment to train SEAL sniper candidates in advanced extreme-range mountain shooting techniques. An Army sergeant, a woman, teaching Navy SEALs. It had never been done before. "You're going to Coronado?" Hayes asked when she told him. "To teach SEALs? That's insane. They barely acknowledge other SEALs exist, let alone Army personnel." "Apparently someone recommended me," Maya said, though she suspected she knew who. Reaper had visited her position twice more during the deployment, each time asking detailed questions about her techniques, her training, her approach to reading environmental conditions. 6 weeks later, Maya stood outside the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, California, watching the Pacific Ocean crash against the beach where SEAL candidates endured Hell Week. The contrast to Afghanistan's dust and heat was jarring. Sergeant First Class Reeves, a Navy Chief Petty Officer, approached, his trident pin gleaming. "I'm Chief Mendoza. I'll escort you to the sniper training facility. Fair warning, the guys are skeptical, nothing personal." "Everything's personal," Maya replied, "but I'm used to skeptical." The sniper training facility was a sprawling complex with multiple ranges, shoot houses, and observation towers. 20 SEAL sniper candidates, all men, all already combat veterans, waited in a classroom. Their expressions ranged from curious to hostile. At the front stood the senior instructor, a grizzled master chief with 30 years of service and more combat deployments than Maya had birthdays. His name tape read Blackwood. "Gentlemen," Blackwood announced, "this is Sergeant First Class Reeves, U.S. Army. She's here for 6 weeks to teach advanced long-range techniques specific to mountain environments." He paused. "I know what you're thinking. I thought the same thing. An Army soldier teaching SEALs seems backwards. A female soldier teaching SEALs seems impossible." Maya kept her face neutral, but her jaw tightened. Then I watched the footage from Panjshir Valley, Blackwood continued. 4 targets at 1,247 meters in mountain winds, 4 shots, 90 seconds. The last one through a gap the size of a cantaloupe. I've been a sniper for 22 years and I couldn't make those shots. He looked directly at Maya. So I suggest you open your minds and take notes. Sergeant Reeves, the floor is yours. Maya stepped forward. 20 pairs of eyes dissected her, looking for weakness, for hesitation, for any sign she didn't belong. She'd felt this before. She'd lived through it before. Before we begin, she said calmly, I want to address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm Army. Yes, I'm a woman. If either of those facts bothers you, I don't care. She let that hang in the air. What I care about is whether you can hit your target when it matters, when your teammates' lives depend on it, when one shot is the difference between mission success and failure. She clicked to the first slide, ballistics data from the Panjshir engagement. Mountain environments create unique challenges. Wind doesn't behave like it does at sea level or in desert environments. Valleys create funnels and eddies. Temperature inversions affect bullet trajectory. Traditional wind reading methods fail because conditions change every 100 meters of altitude. One SEAL, a petty officer first class whose name tape read SULLIVAN, raised his hand. With respect, we've all shot in mountains. We know about wind. Do you? Maya asked. Then explain why the wind at your firing position can be blowing left to right at 8 miles per hour, but at your target 900 meters away it's blowing right to left at 12 miles per hour. Silence. Terrain features create microenvironments, Maya continued. You can't trust a single wind reading. You have to read the entire path the bullet will travel, vegetation movement at multiple distances, mirage patterns, dust devils, even how birds fly. She clicked to the next slide showing the Panjshir Valley terrain. During my engagement, I observed wind patterns for 11 minutes before taking my first shot. I watched how dust moved at 200 meters, 400 meters, 800 meters. I created a mental map of the wind's behavior across the entire bullet path. Another SEAL spoke up. That's great in theory, but in combat you don't have 11 minutes. You're right, Maya agreed. Which is why you practice until reading wind becomes instinctive, until you can glance at a valley and know, not guess, know what the wind is doing at every distance. Blackwood stepped forward. All right, Sergeant, show us. We've set up targets at the long-range facility. 1,200-meter range, mountain terrain simulation, variable wind. You'll use a rifle you've never fired before. Show these men what you showed the Taliban. The class moved to the range. Maya was handed an M110 SAS, a semi-automatic sniper rifle she'd fired maybe twice in her career. Definitely not her preferred weapon. Blackwood pointed to a series of targets positioned between 800 and 1,500 meters. Engage at will. We'll score hits. Maya accepted the rifle, checked the optic, and settled into a shooting position. No preparation. No warm-up shots. Just her, an unfamiliar weapon, and the expectation of perfection. She took 60 seconds to observe, watched the flags at different ranges, noted how grass bent at various distances, read the mirage shimmer. Then she began to shoot. And as she shot, she narrated her process. Wind at 200 meters is negligible left to right. At 500 meters picking up to 6 miles per hour. At 800 gusting to 9. I'm accounting for approximately 18 inches of drift. Target 1, 800 meters. The target rang. Target 2, 950 meters. Wind increasing to 11 miles per hour, same direction. 24 inches of drift. Hit. She worked through all 12 targets methodically, explaining every calculation, every observation, every adjustment. 12 shots, 12 hits. The range went silent except for the wind. Finally, Sullivan spoke, "I'll be damned." Maya stood, cleared the weapon, and handed it back to Blackwood. "Any questions?" A hand went up. Yeah, can you teach us how to do that? That's why I'm here, Maya said. Over the following weeks, she broke down her techniques into teachable components. She showed them how to read terrain features, how to create mental wind maps, how to use observation and patience as weapons. She took them to mountain ranges and made them sit for hours, just watching, just learning to see what the environment was telling them. Reaper appeared during week 4, bringing his entire platoon. He sat in the back of Maya's classroom, taking notes like a student. When the class ended, he approached her. You know what you've done here, right? Taught some classes, Maya said. No, you've changed how we think about long-range shooting. Half the techniques you've taught are already being written into the curriculum. You didn't just prove you belong. You proved you're leading the way forward. On the final day, the students conducted a practical exercise, a simulated hostage rescue at 1,200 meters in mountain terrain with variable winds. Every single student made their shot. Chief Blackwood pulled Maya aside as the class celebrated. In 30 years, I've never seen a guest instructor have this kind of impact. These men are better shooters because of you. He extended his hand. Thank you, Sergeant Reeves, and for what it's worth, I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Maya shook his hand. Doubt makes us better, Chief. It forces us to prove ourselves. I don't mind being doubted. I mind not being given the chance. As she packed her gear that evening, preparing to return to her unit, Maya reflected on the journey. From the taunts at Fort Benning to teaching the most elite warriors in the American military. She'd proven them wrong, but more importantly, she'd proven herself right. 2 years after Coronado, Sergeant First Class Maya Reeves stood in a conference room at MacDill Air Force Base, home of Special Operations Command. Around the table sat representatives from every tier of America's Special Operations Forces: Delta Force, Army Rangers, Marine Raiders, Air Force Special Tactics, and Navy SEALs. She was the only woman in the room, and for the first time in her career, that fact felt completely unremarkable. Sergeant Reeves, the 2-star general at the head of the table, began. Your mountain shooting methodology has been integrated into sniper training across all SOF branches. Failure rates at extreme ranges have dropped by 38%. Mission success rates have increased measurably. He paused. You've fundamentally changed how we train snipers. Maya nodded, still processing the surreal nature of the moment. Thank you, sir. I just taught what I learned from good teachers. You did more than that, a Delta Force Sergeant Major interjected. You proved that excellence has no gender. My last 2 sniper school graduates were women. Both of them cited you as their inspiration. Both are now deployed and performing exceptionally. After the meeting, as Maya walked through the halls of SOCOM headquarters, she passed a display case showing Special Operations history. There, among photos of legendary warriors and historic missions, was a new addition, an image from the Panjshir Valley operation with a placard that read, SFC Maya Reeves, demonstrating excellence in extreme-range precision fire. Her phone buzzed, an email from Fort Benning. Subject, guest speaker request, Women in Combat Symposium. Maya smiled. 5 years ago, she'd been the outsider at Fort Benning, fighting for every inch of respect. Now they wanted her to speak about breaking barriers. She replied with one word, accepted. 3 months later, Maya stood backstage at the Fort Benning auditorium. Through a gap in the curtain, she could see the audience: 300 female soldiers, cadets from West Point, high school students considering military service, and dozens of senior military leaders. In the front row sat Master Sergeant Halston, now retired but still carrying himself like he owned every room he entered. Beside him was Chen, now a staff sergeant running his own sniper training program. Even Morrison had come, having completed his own successful sniper career and now working as a civilian contractor. You nervous? A voice asked. Maya turned. A young woman in army fatigue stood there, barely 20 years old, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and determination Maya recognized instantly. Private Jordan, the young woman introduced herself. I shipped to basic in 2 months, then infantry school, then, she took a breath. Then I'm going to sniper school because of you. Maya felt something catch in her throat. What's your shooting background? Grew up in Alaska, hunting moose with my dad. Everyone says I'm crazy to try for sniper school as a woman, that I'll never make it, that I'm just trying to prove a point. What do you think? Maya asked. Jordan's jaw set. I think they said the same thing about you, and you didn't just make it, you became the best. No, Maya corrected gently. I became one of the best, and you know what? That's enough. You don't have to be better than everyone else, you just have to be excellent at what you do. Were you scared at the beginning? Maya considered lying, then decided against it. Terrified, every day. Not of the training, I knew I could handle that. I was scared of failing, of proving all the doubters right, of letting down every woman who might come after me. How did you get past it? I stopped worrying about proving doubters wrong, Maya said. I started focusing on proving myself right. Big difference. A production assistant signaled that it was time. Maya walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. She took her position at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, young and old, male and female, all of them looking to her for what? Inspiration, permission, proof that it was possible. She cleared her throat and began. My name is Sergeant First Class Maya Reeves, call sign Longshot. 5 years ago, I stood at Fort Benning as one of 3 women attempting Army sniper school. Someone told me I wasn't a sniper, that I was filling a quota, that I'd never make it. She paused, letting the moment breathe. They were right about one thing. At that moment, I wasn't a sniper. I was a soldier with potential. But here's what they didn't understand. Sniper isn't something you are, it's something you become. Through training, through failure, through getting back up every single time someone tells you that you don't belong. The room was silent, hanging on every word. I'm not here to tell you that being a woman in a male-dominated field is easy. It's not. I'm not here to tell you that you won't face doubt, skepticism, or outright hostility. You will. What I'm here to tell you is that none of that matters as much as your own commitment to excellence. She clicked to a slide showing her graduating class from sniper school. I graduated 3rd in my class. Not 1st, 3rd. And you know what? That was good enough. Because I earned that ranking through sweat, through sleepless nights, through refusing to quit when quitting would have been easier. Another slide, the Panjshir Valley. This is where I stopped trying to prove others wrong and started proving myself right. 4 shots at extreme range, 4 lives saved. Did I make those shots because I'm a woman? No. Did I make them despite being a woman? No. I made them because I'm a trained sniper who put in the work. She looked directly at Private Jordan in the audience. There are young women in this room who will go on to do things I never dreamed possible. You'll become pilots, infantry officers, special operations soldiers, snipers. Some of you will fail. Some of you will quit. And that's okay. Not everyone is meant for every path. But for those of you who push through, who refuse to accept limitations others place on you, who prove yourselves through action rather than words. She smiled. You won't be doing it for me. You'll be doing it for yourselves. And for the women who come after you, that's the real legacy. Not breaking barriers, it's making sure those barriers stay broken. The speech continued for 20 more minutes. She shared stories of failure and success, of doubt and determination, of the moment she realized she'd finally earned respect not as a female sniper, but as a sniper, period. When she finished, the standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Afterward, a line of people waited to speak with her, young women seeking advice, senior officers thanking her for changing perceptions, other female snipers sharing their own stories of struggle and triumph. Morrison approached near the end. That thing I said about diversity quotas, he began awkwardly. I was. You were scared, Maya interrupted. Scared that standards would drop. Scared that excellence would be compromised. I understand that fear, but you learned just like everyone else learned that excellence doesn't have a gender requirement. He nodded gratefully. For what it's worth, you're the best sniper I've ever seen. Male or female doesn't enter into it. As the crowd finally dispersed, Maya stood alone in the empty auditorium. She thought about the scared 22-year-old who'd stepped off that bus at Fort Benning, carrying the weight of every doubt and every whispered assumption. That young woman had been told she wasn't a sniper. She'd let her shots do the talking instead. Her phone buzzed one more time, an email from Naval Special Warfare Command. Subject, permanent instructor position offer. Maya smiled and began typing her response. The mission was far from over. The legacy was just beginning. The end.
No. Ah, le posso fare andare di lì e poi girare. Ah, ok. Ok, sì. Allora, proviamo. Quindi dovrebbe essere così. 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 Ce l'ho, ce l'ho. Vediamo se riesco a farlo bene. Così. E il blu. E poi va messo là il blu. Appena sono dentro quel flusso lì. Prima che arrivino a toccare. Devo scendere. Devo scendere e mettere il portale. Ok. Vedi, iniziano. È bello, però iniziano ad essere. Troppe cose insieme. No, ho sbagliato. Iniziano ad essere veramente tante cose insieme. Però è giusto. Se effettivamente la vernice le fa cadere, è giusto.